of the Lord, while God was still speaking, the angel of God, who is himself God, who is pictured as a pillar of smoke at the moment, the angel of God who was going before the host of Israel moved and went behind them, and the pillar of cloud moved from before them and stood behind them, coming between the host of Egypt and the host of Israel. And there was the cloud and the darkness, and it lit up the night without coming near the other, without one coming near the other all night. Basically, God is speaking to Moses saying, lift up your staff, stretch it over the waters. I'm going to split it. You're going to go through on dry land. The Egyptians are going to chase you, but not yet. The angel of God in the cloud moved behind them and became a darkness over Egypt. And as the sun had now set, this is evening time, it's just coming into nighttime, and as the chill sets in over the water, it is light and warmth to the people of God. He's setting this division and distinction between his enemies that he will destroy and his people who he is saving. Look at chapter 14, verse 26. Verse 21. Then, in obedience to what he was just commanded, while God divided the Jews from the Egyptians, then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and Yahweh drove the sea back by a strong east wind all night, and made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided. It's at this point that people they sound like idiots, like they often do, when they start trying to explain the Bible without any miracles. There's this old story of a liberal professor from America, a theological professor, liberal meaning they don't believe the Bible has any miracles. Right? It's mythology, it's sort of made up. This story was stretched over the years. And then, actually, it's not the Red Sea. It's supposed to be the Sea of Reeds, which is a small, short river, only 6 inches deep, that had marshes in it, the reed marshes. And so he's preaching on the Exodus and teaching this African-American community in the southern states of America. And this professor's teaching, and he reads that portion of the story, and a man stands up the back and says, "Hallelujah, it's a miracle, the people of God through on dry land." And the professor says, "No," frustrated, that these plebs don't know the reality. Because don't you know there's no such thing as a miracle? They walked across on what was in fact just 6 inches of water. That's all that happened. The African fella thinks for a moment and cries out again, "Hallelujah! The Egyptians drowned in 6 inches of water. What a miracle!" This is a story of God's redemption, and any kind of other way to try and play this is absolute folly. It's going to tell us that they walked through, look at the next verse, the people, verse 22, of Israel went into the midst of the sea on dry ground, the waters being a wall to them on the right hand and a wall to them on their left. This word for wall is not a small retaining wall. This word for wall is like the walls of Jericho. These enormous fortresses set up to buttress a city. They are enormous walls on either side of them as they walk through on dry ground. This enormous gathering of upwards of 1 million people. We learned last week 600,000 men of fighting age, meaning many wives, many grandmothers, mothers, fathers, old men, children, plus all of their animals marching. This would have been an enormous separation. And the passage doesn't say that the wind blew all night and then it opened. It says basically that the wind was blowing, and as soon as it stops, it's going to cave in. So God sends this wind, and almost immediately there is this division of the water. It's going to take them all night until sunrise for the whole congregation to move across. Some sections of this sea that they might have crossed would have been 20 kilometers, a couple of hours walking. Others of them might have been 2 kilometers, not quite that far, but for the whole procession to move through, it would have taken all night. And God is going to be blowing this east wind across Arabia into the Red Sea to dry it and move it aside. And even though he uses the wind as a tool, it is still an amazing, glorious miracle, one of the Bible's greatest stories of redemption, especially in the Old Testament.